What is up? It's Jamal from the Sales Tribe channel, and I have an excellent interview for you in this video. I just interviewed Larry Nelson, a longtime individual contributor at super large software companies and late stage startups, and he's had success pretty much everywhere he's gone. And in this interview, we talk about where he got his start in sales, where his career got really interesting, and then the golden nuggets of his learnings from closing an 8-figure deal and how it changed the trajectory of his career and his life. So if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. That way you'll get notified every time I put out a new video. This channel is all about how to help each other up our game in terms of being enterprise sellers, to become elite sellers and do really super large, super complex deals. So with that, let's get into the interview. So Larry, how goes it, man?
Fantastic, man.
Yeah, you live in the dream. What's new in the dream world?
You know, we're making the best of a challenging environment for all of us globally and just focusing on what I can control. If you can't control something, don't waste energy worrying about it, because it's just not going to help.
Isn't that the truth?
One of my great advisors once told me in a training, he's like, focus on the O line. And I was like, what's the heck is the O line? He's like, it's the observation. At the base of it, your goal every day is just to observe things and not drop below the O line, which is don't go down into negativity. Just stay at observation or positive. And so I try to live that every day. Just focus on what I can control. Have fun.
Larry, you and I, we've spoken like once and a half. You know, there was a once and a half. We had a group conversation at one point, and then we had a one-on-one after that. But we decided to have some, a nice chance to have a conversation, given that we both, let's say, we have a history and a desire for doing large deals. And I thought conversations like that are super interesting to me, because even though I've been fortunate enough to do a few large ones, I found it really hard to connect with other people who also have. One, it's hard to find them. And two, it's hard to get them on the phone once you find them. I don't know if they're trying to be elusive or secretive, or they're just too busy, but it's great. It's great to have.
Or they're burnt out on a yoga retreat on the side of a mountain somewhere.
That works too, man.
Or they're busy working with their team and, making more happy customers. I have many sayings in life. One of them is happy customers tend to buy more, and happy customers tend to tell other customers that they're happy. So, it's pretty simple stuff once you have the right coaching and training. Fortunately, it took me a long time to find the right coaches and training, but when I did, it was as if someone turned on a giant light and everything changed into a different kind of perspective. So, yeah.
That's exactly what I want to get into, but let's start at the beginning, not birth or high school, unless that's super important to the story. But your sales journey, where did that really begin?
Portland State University. I was lucky enough to be matched to a business mentor who was one of the first 50 employees at a little company called Nike. And he helped Phil Knight expand Nike from a 50-person company into thousands of employees. But he spent, I think, 30 plus years at Nike, and he helped expand it globally. And he was an advisor at the Portland State University Business School Administration, or the School of Business. And I was encouraged to join a group called ISAC, which is a student business group. At the core of it, it's kind of, think of it as like a small McKinsey or a PwC. They exchange students and recent graduates around the world to get real world business experience. And he was my advisor at that organization, and like used to beat me repeatedly at racquetball. And while he was beating me at racquetball, would give me amazing tips. And he helped nudge me in the direction of sales at that point. So that kind of started my main journey.
So it started in university through mentoring.
Yeah, because I was taking a variety of classes, everything from computer science and programming to theater to marketing to psychology. Tried to walk on at Portland State football team, and even though I'm a large man physically, there's a lot of people that are a lot larger and faster, and so that dream of football went away very quickly. And I was really bad at like coding Fortran and COBOL and C+ and everything else. But the marketing psychology stuff kind of stuck together, and so he helped me kind of guide you on the path of you can combine marketing and psychology to really help people. The core of sales, it's not selling, it's facilitating buying. And if you really look at things from a customer's perspective, you can do amazing things. And so he helped me push the direction of sales. He's like, hey, maybe you can consider sales and career in sales. And then I eventually became the president of the chapter for that organization in Oregon. And we helped place, I think, between 30 to 50 students and graduates a year into local Portland area businesses. And so essentially I was out selling consulting to Nike, Tektronix, Intel, you name it, at 20 something years old, convincing them to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on interns. And that was kind of my, my real foray into the corporate world.
All right. Well, let's fast forward. Usually, I don't know how your journey went. Like mine, I took kind of a circuitous route through 3 to 5 earlier stage companies, and then I got to a really big one. And then that's where things started to get really interesting in terms of my learning curve.
Yep.
But if we're fast forwarding through the bumps, where did things start to get interesting for you in your learning curve of big time sales?
I would say in the late 2000s, started getting into training where it focused on delivering business outcomes and not selling technology or bells and whistles. The pivotal moment for me was when I was at Symantec. They brought in a training organization that the instructors are all former C-level executives, so CFOs, CEOs, CMOs. I took a three-day course from the former CEO of Rubbermaid, and it was called Finance for Non-Finance People, and basically it was like executive focused, conversations. And it was literally like, what does the CEO speak like? What does the CFO speak like? How are they measured on? And his thing was ultimately everything that's driven within the company is going to come down from the board and the C-level, and people tend to hang out with people and listen to people they sound like them. So if you're talking finance and deliverables and initiatives and all that stuff that are in every annual report in 10K, you have a stronger chance of them listening to you and actually paying attention to you. And that was a pivotal moment. And I started applying to my career, and all of a sudden going from deals that were like, 100,000, 500,000 to deals in the millions and tens of millions.
Okay. So how deep did this course go? Was it like a half a day, or did you immerse yourself in a new reality? How deep was that experience?
So it was a 3-day instructor-led in a classroom. You shut off your phone, you turned off email, laptops were down when the instructor was talking, laptops were up when you were actually doing case studies. And this gentleman, he was amazing. He just said, look, he goes, when I was CEO of Rubbermaid, this is what I listened to. And he gave an example of a BDR that cold called him. And this young salesperson had done his homework, and he had read the annual report in the 10K. He had listened to a recent earnings call, and he came up with a hypothesis of how he could help Rubbermaid substantially. Called this gentleman, pitched him in less than a minute, and the CEO was like, hey, you need to be down here in my office tomorrow. And the kid was like, I'm a BDR. I have to dish this off to the sales manager. He's like, no, you want my business. You'll be here tomorrow. And the kid was like, all right, I'll bring my manager. And the next day the kid was down there and they closed a 7-figure deal. And so what that showed me was when you talk in their language, AKA finance, and stock increases and all sorts of different things, they tend to take you seriously. When you do your homework and you show up with hypotheses and a thesis how you're going to help them, don't show up and ask a bunch of questions. I'm sorry, if you're calling a public company as a true professional salesperson and you haven't read their annual report, you haven't read the latest 10K, you haven't listened to the latest earnings calls, you're putting yourself at a massive disadvantage. And frankly, you're missing out on a huge opportunity to help people, because to me, at the core of it, to quote Simon Sinek, who I think is a great presenter, leader, kind of a thought guy, the start with why. My why is I like to help people. That's it. I like to help people. When I do, usually in the business world, I get rewarded for it, but like at the core of it, I have to think of ways I can help them. And when I look at a CEO, she or he, they're on the hook to the board and to their shareholders deliver measurable 10x results. And that only comes when you talk in the millions and tens of millions and like, not deal size, but just like impact hundreds of millions of dollars, right? So anyway, that's the way I approach things. And I'm very grateful because I had mentors and I had advisors along the way that would nudge me here and there. And that course, that 3-day course was amazing. Now I've taken other courses that helped a lot. And then there's that one large company that we both worked at. That company had amazing training and like hats off to them. Some of the training they provided was incredible. There's a reason why they were and have been a market leader for so long, because they have phenomenal training, as do a lot of big companies nowadays. But anyway, I'll pause there, breathe, drink water.
No, it's great. The financial language really resonates with me. But one thing that never gets old is just stories, right? Stories that exemplify the headlines that we talk about when you try to describe how these large deals kind of transpire. So it would be great if you got a big bag of stories, because you've done a big bag of deals in your career. Are there any kind of seminal stories that can kind of bring to the fore the learnings that you had as you put together large deals? Could be could be a story about something that happened at the beginning of a sales cycle to actually get something moving, something in the middle that maybe you started beating competition, or the game changed, or something at the end that actually got closed. I'm sure you got a ton of them, but if any come to mind, it'd be great to hear a few.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple that like kind of come to the surface, and I would say like one wasn't the smallest, one the biggest, but it was like, I think regardless of the size of the deal, whether it's a 6-figure deal, 7-figure deal, 8-figure deal or higher, I once met a rep that closed, I don't know, like $120-140 million deal, and he and I sat at a table, had some adult beverages, and shared stories. And like what he described to me was pretty much what we went through on a $500,000 deal. And so I think, first of all deals, regardless of the end value of that deal, start with the same thing, which is, what's the customer's business challenge? What's the solution we're going to bring to the table? And not like technology, what's the business solution? And what's the financial impact and business impact to them, right? So to me, I've always boiled it down to challenge, solution, impact. But in this one particular case, it was a couple key things. So it was just overall customer satisfaction of millions upon millions of customers of this company around the world. So low customer satisfaction, a lot of technical challenge with the services this company was offering, digital online services, and lack of access to these services, and then just the overall ease of use for these customers. And those three things ended up into a decent sales cycle. But like at the end of it, we provided the C-level team with like what the potential payoff and what the impact would be, and ultimately the reality of what they realized was much better than what we had forecasted. But the key things was we focused in on basically what were the challenges they were having, and what was the impact to their business. And so it was really, those are the key things, is just getting away from the technology, the bells, the whistles, the service, whatever you do. It's really understanding their language and what they're measured on. I don't know if that helps, but yeah. And also then when you can get specific, like a recent deal that I did start with the CEO, I reached out to this person and I offered up, first of all, read their 10K, listened to earnings call, read a bunch of articles the CEO had written. And so when I reached out to this person, I quoted a bunch of things, but I gave him real world examples of other customers that we were helping. And I gave him percentages of like impact to their business, because ultimately, I think C-levels, they like percentages and formulas, but I don't think they like saying, hey, I'm going to save you gazillions of dollars. This is the kind of percentage, like say cross-sell, upsell. This is the kind of percentage of churn reduction of customers. As you're acquiring new customers, this is like the percentage increase we've seen. Those kind of numbers that they can then take the formula and extrapolate out to their business and go, oh, wow, this is not just a change. This is a quantum leap change, 5x, 10x, 20x. And literally we even from talking to the CEO, 2 months later, implementing the solution. And because
so slow this one down. This sounds very intriguing. So number one, you just reached out to a CEO and got them.
Yeah, I think, it's a combination of right place, right time, right problem, right people, and just focusing on them. If I could go back in the Wayback Time machine to my younger self, I would get away from saying like, what's in it for me to what's in it for them, and boil down to what really drives those executive level conversations. And it's simple things. It's we either help make you money, save you money, reduce risk, or speed time to market. And all people, regardless of their title, purchase things emotionally in the sense that it's increase of pleasure, decrease of pain. By increase of pleasure, I mean accolades from colleagues. The board promotes you from CFO to CEO. You get giant bonuses. You get written up as like an industry leader. Avoidance of pain is if you're CFO, you don't get like sent to jail for like fraud or whatever. But if you don't boil it down to those simple things in a very short, succinct manner, you won't catch their attention. So I think that was the combination of things, as well as just, hitting that person at the right place, right time. That, timing's everything, like right now, like I don't send emails during the middle of the day. I'll send emails between 6:30 and 10 o'clock local at night, and between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. in the morning, because at night, if people have kids or whatever, other things, they take care of the kids, then there's like an hour or two at night where they may check their emails and stuff, just like I do. Same thing in the morning. If you're getting your kids ready in the morning, there's a finite window where you just catch up on things. And so it's the relevant message too. I think it's not just the timing, it's being relevant, like doing your homework. Like, don't waste these people time. Don't fill up their inbox. Don't hit them with I have a simple formula. Don't send me a LinkedIn request unless we've met and done business together. Like, how can I refer you to my network if we've never met or done business together and I don't know who you are? So why would I ever expect a CEO or CFO to do that for me? So like rarely, if I ever have, I may have one or two times, but like I try not to ever send LinkedIn invites unless I've worked with someone and talked to them. It's just a simple courtesy. So in that particular project, it was did my homework, did my research. I showed up with a hypothesis. It's not like I didn't ask questions. I said, like, I think this is your challenge based upon what you said here and here. This is how we solve it. This is the timeline to solve it. This is the impact of your business. That person was like, sounds cool. I'm intrigued. Now go talk to my team. Team was intrigued. Sounds really cool. Let's go deploy.
So one of the biggest questions that I often get is, what are the mechanics? What are the mechanics of getting in front of somebody as senior as the CEO? So in this case, was it truly a well-prepared cold call, or is there more to the story, or was it simply that?
It was an email. So it was literally, I sat down for probably, well, I had researched the overall account. So first of all, when looking at all my prospective clients, I segmented them into like financial industries, into vertical industries like financial, healthcare, media, entertainment, whatever. And within each vertical, then I had like targeted prospects that I think that we could help. And then with each target vertical, then we have, business solution impacts that we can help them with. So from there, then it's researching then the top targets and start researching them as a company. And then when I eventually approached this CEO, I spent probably an hour, maybe an hour, 20 minutes writing like rough drafts of the email that I wanted to send to them. And then I fine-tuned it and fine-tuned it and fine-tuned it. And the other thing is, CEO once told me, she was like, look, if it doesn't fit in that screen, I'll give you one scroll. So if you have more than one scroll on a smartphone, I'm not going to read it. So I came up with the creative title. I came up with relevant information. It was a one scroll email. And then I sent it so it would be delivered in the evening, assuming this person would probably be maybe checking email, getting ready for the next day or whatever. And I think part of it is luck, but I think luck is where preparedness and opportunity meet, you know. But, you know, there's probably, I don't know, 500 of emails like that I've sent that never got a response, you know.
Yeah, I know. It's a law of numbers, or at
So
least this piece of it is.
so it's activity. So in every day, there's a percentage every day that I prospect every day. And that's something I was taught a long time ago, is every day is a prospecting day. I don't care how busy you are.
So how do you systematize prospecting? What does your prospecting routine look like?
Um, well, I allocate X amount of time every day, even in busy weeks. So half an hour, either early morning or late at night. So during the core business day, I'm allocating that to customer facing Zooms, or in the pre-pandemic world, you know, being on an airplane and flying around the country and the world and meeting with people. But, you know, in the new reality where we're all at, it's, you know, the customer in-person customer meeting is this, right? The whole Zoom and video world. But so I prioritize during the day customer facing activities or critical meetings with internal resources for customer facing activities. So early morning, evening, it's a combination of, you know, emails as well as video emails, as well as actually a fair amount of outbound phone calls to direct lines, which then a lot of times will be forwarded to them via email. But that all starts with doing research ahead of time. And so I will allocate the beginning of a quarter, like, hey, who was my top 5, top 10 targets? Usually top 5. I will sit down for a couple of days, usually on the weekends, and I'll invest the time to research the companies, read the annual reports, read the 10Ks. I subscribe to a service that provides me all the audio and transcripts of all the earnings calls for every public company. And so I'll go in, I'll look at the latest earnings transcript, where usually the C-level people will tell you exactly, A, what's going on, what the challenge is, and what they're doing for the next like 1 to 2 quarters. It's just like, here you go, silver platter. And so I'll do that for a day or two at the beginning of the quarter, and then turn that into a cadence. Then I use a combination of a CRM system from Salesforce, as well as I use simple Google Sheets, and I keep an Excel sheet, and I keep my target accounts, the top target, you know, contacts, and then just a simple activity log. So between Salesforce and my Google Sheets, just simple activity every day, so I can easily track what's going on. And then I'm a big believer in, just like I don't like to get a lot of spam and irrelevant touch points, I make sure that I'm not touching that person with the same message all the time. I'm hitting them on email, or latest thing I love is video emails, but I'll do like the second or third touch. So it's having that cadence, and just, you know, half an hour a day, early morning or evening, getting that every day, so that you're constantly building that pipeline. So I don't care if you're a frontline salesperson or you're the executive vice president and SVP of sales worldwide, everybody needs a bigger pipeline.
You know, it just occurs to me, Larry, that we haven't really introduced you. So if you were going to put yourself in a category, right? You're not an inside sales rep. You're not new at the game. How would you characterize yourself? So we're recording this. If I ever show this to somebody, and you would want to say, okay, this is the kind of rep that I am. How would you describe yourself?
I would call myself as a prescriptive sales professional. I'm just like a doctor is going to prescribe to you how to fix something. And there's various types of doctors. Think of me as a very specialized doctor that's going to prescribe to you exactly how to fix your business challenges, what that solution is for the fix, and what the impact's going to be to you. Just like if a heart surgeon tells you, hey, you should probably do this, and this to avoid heart disease and passing away early, you can probably listen to them more than you are a general doctor that says, hey, lose a couple pounds and stop eating carbs, you know? And so that's why I approach it. Some people like to call it the challenger sale. I started doing it with other people before challenger sale came out, but it's a simple thing. I believe in this. Never ever take a meeting without thinking about what value you're going to deliver that person that's agreeing to that meeting. They should walk away with some value. So understand the top 2 or 3 things that you want them to walk away with at the meeting from a value perspective. And, you know, show up with a hypothesis, show up with numbers, show up with a formula to help them. You know, they have way too many salespeople going, "Hey, tell me about your story. Tell me about what keeps you up at night." I hate that question. I really hate that question because it shows me that person hasn't done their research and thought about it. And trust me, that potential customer, they're thinking probably worse things than that. They're really thinking, why did I agree to give this person 15 or 30 minutes or an hour? And how fast can I get off this call to go do something else?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go. I want to go back to prospecting for a minute, because prospecting means that you're always building your own pipe. How do you look at your, I guess you could say, look at your pipeline or look at your territory in terms of what do you want to accomplish in any given year from an achievement standpoint? Are you just out there scanning the horizon looking for whales and you don't see the fish and the seals nearby? Or do you have kind of a blended approach? How do you look forward? If you're building this pipeline all the time, how do you manage that to maximize your results over a fiscal year?
Well, if you eliminate this thing called sleep, you have way more time to do a lot more activities. So just step one, no more sleep, lots of caffeine. No. Well, in seriousness, though, it's more of a blended approach for me. I think it's a combination. To put it in, like, I don't know, baseball terms, you need singles, doubles, triples, and home runs. Everybody would like to get home runs all day long and close mega deals all day long. The reality is it takes quite a while to close those. And so I think to keep the lights on, to keep the shareholders happy, to keep executives happy, to keep you happy, you need to have smaller mid-sized deals coming in regularly, as well as progressing along those mega deals. And so it's a blended approach, and it's tough. I mean, it's not easy. You have to balance it out. And I think you have to be able to use a word called no a lot. You have to say no to people when it doesn't jive with your plan. It's not within what you targeted. And I think it's a very powerful thing. And it's not a negative thing. You have to be polite and say, look, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Here's why. Like, I learned that from multiple executives. There was an executive at the company we worked at that was good at that. And it wasn't a negative thing. They were like, look, I have very specific deliverables, and what you're asking me doesn't fall within that. So it's no, and I'm not going to do that, and go talk to this person. So, time is the most precious commodity we have. And so we as salespeople, you have to look at time as if someone's putting money into your pocket or taking money out of it. So if someone's asking for your time and they're not adding value and they're not adding to your focus to deliver for customers, it's as if they're taking money out of your pocket.
So let's talk about management.
Yeah.
I get a lot of questions from reps saying, I would really love to do a deal of size, but my manager just wants me to close stuff monthly. First time that thing pokes his whole head up, whack it down and close it. And I can never grow my deals anything beyond, to let them mature. What kind of advice would you have for reps like that in terms of working with management to kind of carve out some space, or what kind of, have you had to deal with this issue in your own career?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think you have to look at management like a customer. They're being driven by what's coming down from above them. And so I think first and foremost is have empathy for your management. If you're not the CEO or the chairman of the board, everybody's taking order from somebody. Everybody has directives that are being provided. And so I think first of all is have empathy for your management. Secondly, look at them as a teammate, not as someone I have to report to and I'm beholden to. So and then I think from there, it's collaborating with them. Understand, ask them, why do you want me to close those deals all day long and do transactional versus mega deals? There could be a very specific reason why. It's also, I think, it depends upon what company it is, what space they're in, what type of solutions or products they're selling. So some organizations are just much more transactional than large, big deals. And so I think it's kind of directed first and foremost by who the company is and what market they're in and what they deliver. So if you're not, if you're in a market that's high volume, transactional, kind of products, you know, you're not going to do big deals. If you're a big
Yeah.
enterprise hardware company, if you're at, I have a friend that was at a company that makes very large industrial systems, and they call on, you know, only companies $10 billion or greater. And their, you know, their smallest deals like 5 million, their biggest deals are in the hundreds of millions. You know, it's a very finite amount of people that they can go after. And so first and foremost, it's, you know, who do you work for? What's the value prop? And then I think, again, just, you know, collaborate with your manager, sit down and go, well, hey, who, you know, show me someone that's doing everything right in the organization where I can learn from them. Ultimately, a manager, he or she, you know, they want you to be successful. No manager that I've ever known wants their salespeople to fail.
Sure.
None of them. So it's kind of like, as long as you're being professional and you're showing up prepared and you're willing to learn, you know, I've learned a lot in my career. At the same time, you know, I will never stop learning. I challenge myself to take courses, to learn from any source that I can, because the moment you stop learning, and I think further kind of refining who you are as a person, as a business person, you know, if you stop doing that, you just get, you know, you get lost in the dust.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. 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 Now, so, you know, I'm always sensitive to the depth that we go into when talking about specific deals. So you tell me what you can and can't say, but it would be great to get kind of a highlighted walkthrough of any part of of one of your mega deals, right? It doesn't matter what who the company was, even what industry they're in, but some of the greatest learnings that you've had from the largest, any one of the largest deals that you've done, in terms of, I think some of the highlights could be, you know, what's it like working with a bigger team, right? You know, doing the
Yeah.
large deals takes a much bigger team. How do you work with executives, both in terms of on your side of the table and that with the customer? Well, you know, I go on forever, but those are a couple ideas.
Um, yeah, no, so you hit on a couple of key ones. So first of all, I've never seen someone that's done big mega deals that didn't do it with an amazing team, right? So first and foremost, you have to be able to put together a really strong performing team. And just like the customer, you have to show what's in it for them, what's the value for them to being in that team. And I think a lot of people that have been in the kind of roles you and I are, you know, there's not a direct organizational hardline reporting. It's typically, you know, you're a high level individual contributor, and there's anywhere from 5 to 40 people that you need along the way to add value to your customer, not you, but to your customer. There's a difference, right? They're not adding value to me, the seller. They're adding value to the potential customer. But you have to be respectful of them and their role and their time, and you have to show them what's in for them. So that's the first thing: is build a great team, build that dream team, and then you have to be the leader, whether you're their direct manager or not. You have to be the leader, and I'm a big believer in leading by example. You know, and I'll say this: there was a gentleman in one of my big deals that we had been going for, I don't know, 12 hours, 14 hours one day, and there was 9 of us or 10 of us in the conference room, and frankly, I snapped. Like, he made a comment, I snapped, and I realized, wow, is that a line? And 36 later, I was like, I apologized to him in front of the whole team. I was completely wrong, out of line. Sorry that I overreacted. And so I think it's not only just the good moments, but it's the tough moments, like owning up to what's going on. And I think that, you know, that leading by example and really motivating the team and keeping them going is huge. And then as far as the customer, it's getting back to what I talked about earlier. It's the challenge, solution, impact. I don't care if it's a $100K deal or a $100 million deal. What's the challenge they're having from a business perspective? What's the business solution we're going to provide to them? And what's the business impact? You know, make money, save money, speed time to market, reduce risk. Simple as that. And so that's been kind of steadfast through all the deals that I've done that are larger. And then I call it the connected dots within the customer organization. It's not what's the actual org structure, but what's the connected dots? What's the dotted lines? Is the CEO friendly with the SVP of marketing? Is the CFO friendly with the head of data science? It's being able to map out all these relationships that aren't on an org chart that you can download from like a Zoom info. It's spend the time in the trenches. And if you can, and, you know, again, pre-pandemic world, if you could actually earn the right to be badged onto a company's campus, and you go there and spend time to get to know them. And you put skin in the game. You put an engineer or two or three on site at no cost to them to do analysis and talk to the people and understand the processes they have. There's the whole before and after. It's like, well, what do you do right now that's really difficult, and how do you do it? And then what's the potential after? And you only do that by walking in the customer's shoes, which means you're on site, again, pre-pandemic world, on site, working with them, and they get to know you, and they know that, yeah, you're there to help them, and there's a dollar sign attached to that, but you differentiate yourself by putting the skin in the game. And one or two or three of the big deals I did, we put engineers on site for weeks at a time sometimes, and invested hundreds of thousands of dollars of resources at no cost to the customer to invest into them and learn about their current before state so we could build the after state. And the last piece is a joint success plan. Some people call it a joint execution plan or reverse timeline. I call it a joint success plan. In the software and technology world, success to me is you, the executive of the company, your platform, or what are the solution from us, the business solution from us is up and running in production and is delivering measurable value, making money, saving money, whatever. To me, that's success. And so what I do with those executives is like, how do we collectively work together to get to that success? And then map it out literally into a spreadsheet or Google Sheets, whatever, and then work back. But what do we have to do collectively, the potential customer and us, the potential partner or vendor, whatever? How do we jointly work together? And what are the steps? And who are the people who own the steps? That on all the big deals I've done, we had one of those in every one of them. And then weekly, we would update that to our internal team and the customer. So every Friday morning or Friday afternoon, an email would go out to the senior level person at the customer that we were working with and go, here's our joint success plan to date. Here's the current priorities and steps. And here's who owned the actions. And then once every 2 weeks, we'd have a conference call to keep everybody accountable, both us and them.
So back up to two very interesting points. Number one, I've only been given a badge once in my career, and the reason why it happened is I was there. It was a customer. It wasn't a prospect. It was a customer. So we were already doing business. I happened to live relatively close to the headquarters, and one of my main contacts got tired of picking me up in the lobby. Yep. So he just got me a badge. But do you have any stories about how you get, have you had it? You've gotten badges, I'm assuming.
I have, and I've had them taken away.
Yeah, I did too. In a security sweep, like 3 years later, they finally said, no more of these, sales guys running around our campus. Oh. Do you have a story about, or do you have a methodology about how you go about getting a badge?
Yeah, I mean, one was a large automotive company that used to be based in Los Angeles and is now based in Texas. Fantastic company, fantastic people. We had a small footprint out there, but we wanted a much larger footprint. I went to a couple of the C-level executives and said, look, we want to invest in you. And that means putting people on site, engineers, consultants, whatever, to do analysis, to come back with informed hypotheses of how we can help you from a business perspective. In order to do that, we need to expedite access to and from people across the organization. And that was the original kind of value prop. And we eventually, over time, they agreed, said, yeah, this sounds interesting, and showed them a plan of what we're going to do. And so they badged me and a couple of my engineers. Now, that badge was eventually taken away because that company also, like many big companies, has very strict procurement policies on certain large deals. And there was a very large, tens of millions of dollars contract, I think, that us and multiple vendors are being considered for. And so during the RFP process, all badges were taken away. And so us and all the major folks were taken away. But it's just, again, it's getting a badge is almost like selling a deal. It's like you have to show them, what's the challenge you're having right now without me on campus? What's the solution I'm going to provide you, and what's the impact to you? And so, yeah, I've been badged, I don't know, 2 or 3 times, major clients. That's but again, great. I think even though you have a badge doesn't mean you have carte blanche. I think it's extremely rude if you're badged to just kind of wander the halls and show up. You need to be respectful of boundaries. And I have seen other reps that had badges that were taken away because they didn't respect the boundaries. All of a sudden they thought they were part of that company. Like, no, you're still not an employee. They've just empowered you and trusted you that you're going to have ethics and not do crazy stuff. And so just remember that, have ethics, don't do crazy stuff. Don't just walk the halls and show up.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, so you are the quarterback of your team and you get a badge and maybe a badge for a couple other folks. How do you structure that on-site time to do an analysis to prove out or to kick around a hypothesis, to build a hypothesis? How do you structure that?
The first step is to understand what the customer's priorities are, the prospective customer, and then let them know in order for you to come back and deliver a business solution with measurable results over a defined period of time, that you have to have, you have to have data to prove that. And that data is not just third-party data, it's data from their team. And so you need them to get on board with, they've got to provide data. A handful of like large deals and mega deals that I've done just basically all involve customers putting skin in the game and agreeing to provide me and my team access to people that can provide data. So up front, again, understanding what their priorities were, and then B, asking what kind of, asking for access to people to get the data, and then showing them potentially what the output could be. And so showing them a sample of a deliverable that you delivered to a CFO or CEO before, to go, okay, well, here's the example output of the solution we provided and the impact, so that they know what they're going to get. So you can't just say, hey, I want this. You need to show them what they're going to get.
Now, have you ever had trouble getting the data from the folks on the ground?
Oh yeah, every time.
So do you front run that some way, or do you have to deal with it kind of once the moment it happens? How do you deal with that?
I think you have to just be, well, you can try to be proactive, and kind of assess where there might be challenges. But I think it really comes down to just when you're in the middle of it and something happens, and then you just have to, be professional and understand the situation, understand why they may or may not be wanting to provide you that data. Again, putting yourself in their shoes. I just have to assume that there's always a reason why they don't want to do something. And just, if there's a challenge, be professional, ask them why, see if you can resolve it with them. If they can't resolve it, and someone up the chain has already approved this in their organization, and that person up the organization has us on the hook to deliver something, and that particular person or department is stopping us from doing that, and the executive wants it, just politely going back to the executive and say, hey, we've run into some resistance. Here's what's going on. Never make it personal. It's business. At the end of the day, if you were, a billionaire, would you go do this job? I personally like helping people. And so even if I was a billionaire, I'd probably still be working just differently. But I think that's what you got to look at is I take my career seriously, but it's just business. And so don't make it personal. Don't attack people. And I think even some people see on outside look like they're just not very nice. They're just maybe having a bad day. You never know what any one person is going through at any one moment. Heck, even here in Los Angeles on the freeways, when someone screams at you and, whatever, you never know what they're going through. Maybe they just had a horrible fight with their spouse or partner, maybe on the way to the doctor. I don't know. So I try to always just observe things, not assign negativity to it, and just go, maybe they're just having a bad day, and just be polite and ask them.
Yeah, that's great. So we got just a couple more minutes left. In your years, you're a young man, but you've had a nice long career.
You're too kind.
Yeah.
I'm actually 26.
Again. If you look back on, there's always years of just kind of bumping along and having, well, I don't know about always. I think something that happens relatively often is there's this period in one's career where you just kind of bump along. You're not really rocking, right? You're just kind of either getting by or struggling or whatever. And then at some point you resolve that and you really kind of ascend. If you look back on your career, Was there, what would you tell your younger professional self to give them some guidance to accelerate through that kind of long dry spell?
Um, it's a couple things. I mean, I met someone in college that at that point he was worth tens of millions of dollars. He was like a friend of my business mentor. He'd filed business bankruptcy twice in his life. And he was like, look, he goes, innovative big ideas sometimes fail in massive ways. So he goes, you just have to be able to like innovate and take risks, but you also have to know that there's ups and there's downs. And so I think it's looking back at that and just knowing that, you're going to have ups and downs. But from a younger self, the key is to just keep on track, keep on your plan, keep focused on the customer, keep focused on business deliverables, keep focused on the customer, right? Simple thing. Again, happy customers tend to buy more. So if you really focus on what makes and make the customers happy, the valleys and the mountains are going to like kind of like smooth out. So I think it's just hang in there. Other than stand-up comedy and some other professions, I mean, sales is one of the most feared professions in the world. So it's kind of like, you just have to stay on track, stay positive. Only one person's going to control your mental state in any moment, and that's you, either consciously or subconsciously. So consciously creating a mental state where you're controlling what you're thinking, how you're thinking, the emotions you're in, and those emotions with a state really lead to the behaviors and actions you take in any given moment. Mm. And the actions you take then lead to outcomes. And so it's telling my younger self, don't get bummed out. This is a tough industry. You're going to hear no 100 times before you hear a yes. And so just kind of reprogramming that. But it's just also don't be afraid to take quantum leaps. And quantum leap like 10x. Quantum leaps require innovative, sometimes risky ideas, and sometimes it's gonna fail. And I would say this: one of my current customers, a really smart guy, it's just dynamic, fun person. He calls it cratering. We're going to crater hundreds of times before we have a success. The key is to fail fast and crater fast so that we can get to the successes faster. Yeah.
That's great, Larry. I really appreciate your time. I know you got to go in a few minutes. What I'll do is I'll stop recording. We can sign off, but thanks so much for this time. This is just golden stuff.
My pleasure, man. It's been fun chatting.
Right on.